It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard. A massive pleasure to be with you. Once again, it is time for a guest choice special. And joining me tonight, a man who has been taking more hits to the head in the last 20 years than a lot of people would take credit for. We are joined by Professional Wrestler Havok. He's known the city over. There are so many different federations that you have wrestled for. Havok, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me along.
Anytime. Now, you are a bit of an enigma locally because you get to basically free agent throughout the local federations.
Yeah, well, I guess I've been around for, I think this year will be 22 years now if you include when I started training. I guess you could say I'm towards the twilight of my career. And I really needed to get out there, just enjoy what I can in wrestling before I eventually need to hang up the boots. And I've just been very lucky to get that opportunity.
Well, I've been, not to get too personal, but I've been stalking you for the last 3 weeks and looking in your windows and whatnot, and you seem to be in the shape of your career. That's not usually how people end their run as a pro wrestler.
No, I mean, if you compare me to some guys, to say I'm in the best shape of my career probably doesn't look that great. But yes, I suppose as I've gotten older, I guess your health and fitness starts to become more important, especially as I knew as I'm getting older, I need to be in better shape to sort of keep performing. And I just thought it was time to sort of take a step up, enjoy what's, getting towards the end of my career as much as I could, and just trying to get in some better shape was a big part of that.
Yeah, right. How did you make your start? Was it local?
Yes, so probably late 90s, there wasn't really any local wrestling in Adelaide. You'd get some groups come over from Melbourne, put on the occasional show. We were wrestling around in the backyard as mucking around in high school. Put up a website back, when people were first starting those like GeoCities websites.
GeoCities or Angel Fire.
Yeah, put up GIFs, a 5-second GIF that took 45 minutes to download, that sort of thing.
And if too many people visited your site within the week, that was your allocation expense, so no one could view it for about...
We certainly didn't have that problem. But yeah, retired wrestler Cole Devani, he came across our website, offered to train us. A lady named Robin started up a wrestling promotion called Pro Wrestling South Australia. That was in 1998, and October 99 made my debut against Hartley Jackson. Yeah,
right. I have followed your career on and off for a long time. I believe it was EPW would have been one of the first times that I saw you. Obviously, you do a lot of work with Wrestle Rampage and Riot City.
Yep.
Were you around for the Snake Pit days?
I didn't actually wrestle at Snake Pit. There took 15 years ago or so, some groups sort of split off. Everyone, as people got more experience, people had different ideas about what they wanted in a wrestling show. A few different groups started up.
You're being so diplomatic. You should just say what you think.
I'm still, trying to do some active wrestling for people. So
nice.
But EPW Adelaide sort of became 01, which became Wrestle Rampage.
Yes.
So that's sort of a lineage there. You had Riot City Wrestling that started up. You had Snake Pit. Pro Wrestling South Australia sort of had a resurgence. You've got Adelaide Championship Wrestling. You've got all these different groups, all these different guys. It's been good to have a chance to wrestle at different groups with different people. If you're sort of stuck in one place, you're not really getting that experience, and that's something I think is a big part of wrestling. You need to get that experience. You need to have your bad matches, your good matches. I've just been very lucky, I would say.
And how did you catch the wrestling bug originally? Like, what was the catalyst? Was it watching the likes of WWF?
Yeah, I think I'd always been a fan of wrestling, but we sort of had a resurgence before we started this backyard wrestling where we'd go down to the video store, go, what are we going to find? Oh, there's some wrestling. Let's have another look at that. And then it got to the point where it's like, I can't wait for the next pay-per-view to come out at the video shop, come out 3 months after, whatever the show was. So it was catching up on WWF back then from the video shop that really got us back into it.
So many people forget that Aussie wrestling fans, we had it pretty rough back in the day because we had to follow all the action. There was no Raw is War or Raw. We had to follow all the action on Coliseum home video,
Yeah, that was it.
which was about 3 to 6 months behind what was actually being aired in the US. So it almost was a screening process back in the day. Like, you know, you hear the parents are like, in my day, we had to walk 10 miles to school. We are the generation of wrestling fans. Like, back in my day, there was no network. There was no streaming. We had to walk 10 miles in the freezing cold rain and hot rain, all these different variations.
And we would happily do it too.
Just to watch, Royal Rumble 92 when it's 1994.
Yeah.
Because we were not treated well. And who were some of the wrestlers that really inspired you back in the day?
Well, of course, there was Hulk Hogan. I actually preferred Ultimate Warrior to Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
Undertaker, of course. As you get older, and obviously, I've been involved in wrestling now for a long time, and you start to think back of guys you liked back then and who you liked sort of changes. So guys like Jake the Snake is very high on my list now. Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man. Just when you look back at the way they performed, their characters,
100%.
It's so much more important to me now than what was back then.
Definitely. Look, I remember growing up absolutely hating Rowdy Roddy Piper. And the reason being is because you were supposed to hate him.
Yep.
And as I've got older, I've realized that that's exactly what they wanted you to do, is to hate that man.
Yeah.
And that makes you, that kind of shows how, how satisfyingly well he did his job. Because it was like every fiber of my being just really didn't like it. And it's like, I think after I saw They Live, I just fell in love with Rowdy Roddy Piper. Yeah, man. Like, if you could wrestle one wrestler, living or dead, dream match, Havok versus, who would the other person be?
Oh,
it's Sable, isn't it?
No, I actually wasn't a Sable fan.
No?
I was a Sunny fan back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She took the belt to WCW.
Yeah. No, I'm not so much a Sunny fan now, if you know some of the things she's been up to. But, I don't know, there's something about Ted DiBiase. The way he performed in the ring, he had the charisma as well. He could make anyone look like $1 million.
Yeah, well, hence the name.
Yeah, no, there's something about him. He would have been great to wrestle.
Now, obviously, you said that, you're not sure about the longevity of how long you'll be doing what you're doing. Do you have like a bit of a bucket list of things you want to achieve before you do finally ride off? Who locally would you like to throw through a table?
Well, this weekend actually I'm wrestling Adam Brooks, who admittedly he's one of the best wrestlers this country has produced. So
he's Australia's Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky to get to wrestle him. We'll see how a guy, at like the peak of his career goes with someone who's not.
Are there going to be a few calls for elder abuse on the weekend?
Yeah, well, there might be a heart attack or two, both on my end. So we'll see how that goes. So no, that's fantastic. There's because I haven't wrestled a lot of the guys at Riot City Wrestling. There's quite a few there. I'd like to get some more experience with. I've had a little bit in the ring with Zach Sabbath.
Yep.
He'd be great to get in there with.
He's one of the worst humans on earth. And that's the official stance of Dave's Video Graveyard.
Chris Basso would be great to get in there. You got some of the younger guys who, like they're already something special, like Matt Hayter.
Yep.
Then wrestle Rampage. I got to wrestle Rat Daddy a month or so ago. It was great to get in there with him. I've wrestled Corn Dog, who was great, like the young guys there, Tommy Knight. I suppose I'm kind of getting to wrestle all of these guys now, which is great. Great way to, I say finish off my career. I've got no firm plans, but it just seems to be going really great with the guys I'm getting to wrestle.
Knock on wood, of course.
That's it.
And of course, you'd always love Bronson Reed to make his way back to Adelaide and take a turn with him once again.
Well, I guess it depends. I want him to be as successful as he can be, so if that means he never comes back, that's great for him.
Exactly.
If he does, I might have been wrestling 20 years, but I'm sure he's got plenty he can teach me.
And shout out, of course, to him, because this weekend he did Australia, let alone South Australia, proud.
He should
doing so amazingly with NXT, and he should have won the belt. And I know that's the most Mark thing to say ever, but he's proven his worth time and time again, and it's awesome to see. And also, not taking any credit, but he wasn't signed to the WWE before he came on this show, and now he is. I'm not taking any. I'm not saying that it was because he was on this show, but I'm just saying timeline wise, before no, after yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it really does.
Charge your phone in the morning is all I'm saying. Okay.
Right, they're looking for decrepit old wash-ups, are they? Great. Sign me up.
They're like, where can we find the next big thing? A terrible community radio show is the go-to.
Well, they did bring Jake the Snake back when he was pretty much on the way out, so maybe I've still got a chance.
It's so funny, watching AEW at the moment. Every time, a veteran pops up, I'm still more excited when Taz is on screen than anything else that's happening in ring, because I'm an old man. Now, obviously, tonight's all about your 10 favourite movies of all time. We also get to know a bit about you as a person. But this weekend, because obviously living in 2020... it's not every weekend we get to say, there was a few trailers released. However, this weekend with DC Con, we obviously got more Superman and Batman than anyone ever thought they needed.
Yeah.
I wanted to start by talking with you about the Snyder Cut release trailer. Obviously put to Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. I wasn't satisfied with the original Justice League release, which they blamed everything on Joss Whedon, essentially, saying that everything that he changed ruined it. So they've been given $40 million more to redo the movie, essentially. I'm too much of a skeptic, and I'm still having trouble seeing past the fact they're rewrapping the same movie for us. And this is coming from a guy that watches Terminator 2 in 3D every couple of years when it gets re-released. I'm like, ooh, something new. James Cameron took the windscreen out of the truck. Better go see it.
Well, mind you, the extended edition of that was
That
very
is
good.
something we'll be talking about this evening. What did you think? Where do you stand on the Snyder Cut of the work?
It is good that he gets to finish off, I guess, what you'd say is his vision.
Given the tragedy that obviously took him away originally.
Snyder, though, I think you know generally what you're going to get from him. I do probably think I will enjoy his cut more than what I saw.
I made the joke when they initially announced it, saying that now it's the Snyder Cut again. It's the exact same movie, and the extra footage is just him using his slow motion on everything from the original film.
It very well could be.
The internet obviously caught on fire when it was released because, everyone's coming out saying that, it's just alternative takes of the thing. I was quite surprised. I don't know how much you follow with DC. They still haven't addressed the Ezra Miller video that came out a few months ago of him essentially attacking a lady. And
that hasn't even been discussed, has it?
Not at all. Marvel, James Gunn says something terrible on Twitter 10 years ago, and Marvel are on top of it the second it becomes a controversy.
Yep.
Whereas DC are like, here's Flashpoint. Look, two Batmans.
Yeah, I don't know what they should do in that. I mean,
I just want some context of the videos. All we really need.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look good from what you see in the video that was released. Sorry, but with the Snyder Cut, it's going to be color graded differently, but I still feel like it's just going to be the equivalent of putting a Watchmen filter on what we already got.
Yeah, I mean, you can cut a movie in a way that makes it completely different. Plus, he's got, it's 4 hours?
Yeah.
The new cut. So it shows you how much footage he had that wasn't used. And Whedon shot quite a bit of new footage, didn't he?
My wife is hoping that it's just 4 hours of slow motion Jason Momoa, particularly the scene of him taking his shirt off.
Yep.
One thing that stood out in the trailer, which I didn't really particularly take that much notice when Justice League came out, Ben Affleck's looking pretty old.
Yeah, well,
I know he's meant to
be the older Batman. Yeah,
older Batman, but it looks like just normal Ben Affleck's head put on the Batsuit in that last scene.
I actually quite enjoyed his portrayal in that, and I would have liked to see a Batman movie with 100%. Affleck. I quite enjoyed it.
Well, we're hearing rumors that we're going to finally get to see that because we're getting Flashpoint, which is going to feature essentially the Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline to a degree. which means we're going to get a multiverse situation, which means we're getting Michael Keaton.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
And that's all that anyone age gets.
He's still my top Batman.
Oh, man. Anytime 1989 comes up, we're contractually obliged as old men to talk about Michael Keaton. Now, the other trailer the teaser trailer that was released was James Gunn's Suicide Squad sequel. I'm actually pretty excited because I loved what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Very much.
And also, he's leaning so heavily into how silly it should be.
Yep.
Whereas with the first film, David Ayer was like, no, super serious and gritty.
Which didn't really suit the characters and that were in it.
No, but I'm pretty excited for that. The other trailer that I watched on the weekend is obviously the extended Wonder Woman 84 trailer, which I reckon that looks pretty great.
Yeah, I did enjoy the first one. I do worry if it's going to have a bit of that problem some sequels have where it just goes too over the top.
Exactly. My biggest issue is I'm worried that Kirsten Wiig, I've got her so locked in, compartmentalized in my head as the funniest woman on earth that moving away from, like, it's like when the world first saw The Truman Show.
Yep.
We're like, no, Jim Carrey, be funny. Don't be serious.
Like she's going to threaten her, like, I'll kill your family, and you're going to burst out laughing.
Yeah, and I'm just like, it's absolute classic SNL writing. So that was the other one, and of course, maybe 70% of the internet pulled their feet from their mouth and actually had to admit how amazing Robert Pattinson's The Batman looks.
Yeah. No, it does look very good. He looks good in that role. I like the look of the outfit. I mean, he's meant to be a younger, year 2 Batman, something like that.
Yeah.
I think it does look really good. I like the dark, gritty feel of it.
The only thing that kind of sat weirdly with me for watching that trailer was it kind of looks steampunk. Like, it looks like Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock.
Yep.
Like that kind of thing.
Yep.
But then it's obviously got the future tech of the Batmobile and stuff.
I suppose they really have to differentiate it from all the other Batmans that they've had now, don't they?
I would love for Flashpoint to also feature him, just for the sake of them all, much like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Which I'm hoping they do something live action one day.
Yeah, how good would that be? So what was the other trailer? Oh, just the Suicide Squad game. Now, you said you're a big gaming fan.
Yeah, that's really my biggest hobby. When I was younger, it was all about movies, and as I've gotten older, it's all become about video games. Mainly into single-player sort of epic story like Last of Us.
I just finished Last of Us 2 recently.
Yeah, I know a lot of people hated it, but I really enjoyed it, and by the end, I probably had more sympathy for the other character than I did the main one. Ellie.
Without getting into spoilers, it falls into the same category for me as what I was saying about Roddy Piper. You're supposed to hate that character. And then you also get shown that, the fact you're hating this character means you're doing what the game wants you to do. So it's a very effective game. So what's your main... So consoles is the main thing that you're into?
Yeah, I've already put my pennies away for the PS5 and probably the Series X. I haven't quite sold me on it yet. Don't really see a reason to get it at launch yet, but I will at some stage. Mainly PlayStation player, but I've got an Xbox as well.
I always get the new gen consoles about halfway through the year after the Christmas they were released, because that's when it becomes like, okay, now we got to get that secondary market of the people that were too cheap to get it when it came out, and that's when I shine. Yeah, no, awesome. What's your do you have an all-time favorite game?
All-time favorite, maybe the original Tomb Raider. I still remember on PS1 loading that up and walking into this blocky room of...
Do you still get a funny feeling when you see pyramids now?
Especially anything like Egyptian or... that was just a huge jump at the time. Yeah, I loved Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I was... I think I was a bit of maybe a few wires loose because I spent so much time on Road Rash 3D that I refused to buy a motorbike out of, I feel like, muscle memory.
Yep.
I would somehow hit someone with a chain while I was learning.
Or someone had hit you.
So, we do live in Adelaide, so it is possible. We do live
possible.
in the setting of Road Rash. So, yeah. This evening we'll be talking all about your 10 favourite films. After the first bit of music, we'll come back and we'll do the quiz where we get to find out all about you as a person and your movie watching. Now, this evening's first song, I thought I'd change things up a little bit. The reason being is on the weekend, I was showing my kids, I'm a huge fan of music videos that tie into the movies. So I was always a massive fan of You Could Be Mine, Guns N' Roses, having Terminated, having Arnie in it.
Yep.
Turn the Beat Around from Gloria Estefan ties into The Specialist, the movie with Stallone. And so I started showing the kids all these different complimentary music videos. And we even watched I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston, which I haven't seen The Bodyguard in a good 20 years.
Been a long time.
So much of that movie is given away in the music video. Like, it plays out like the movie. But we ended up right down at Jackie Chan's Police Story 3, and the music video is Warren G's What's Love Got to Do with It? So I thought, it is time, even though this probably plays overnight in the WOWFM music mix, I thought it was time to bring this one off the shelf. This is DVG. We are joined by professional wrestler Havok, known for a lot of his brutal stylings, whether it be with Wrestle Rampage or Riot City Wrestling. We will be talking all about his 10 favourite films of all time. But before we get to that point, we have the quiz, the high fidelity quiz that we stole from the radio show here on WOWFM. High Fidelity, made it our own, and we will be talking all about things that are coming up. Before then, let's get into the quiz. Havok, are you ready?
I am ready now.
It was that extra
I needed
pause
that
that
little
just
bit.
put you over.
I did.
What was your local video store growing up?
Morphettville, I think it was Morphettville Park. Little independent one owned by a nice guy called John. Sort of place where you'd grab your 5 weeklies for $6 or whatever, and he'd always go grab a couple more. Like, very fond memories of that. And it'd always be the same movies you'd grab every week.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was Movie Land at Melrose Park, I think it was.
Yes, yep.
I can remember illegally walking along the train line on the weekend to go like hire a PlayStation 1, or, you just go there and spend an hour looking at all the videos.
Yep.
Yeah, great times.
Yeah, that became video easier.
Yeah, and now it's like a mobility scooter place.
Yes, indoor park.
I kind of have a sad feeling when I drive past and see it's not a video store anymore.
It's much like the old 1990s Pizza Huts and the 1990s video shops, or even Sizzler out on Main North Road. It still looks exactly the same, but it's something completely different now. It's so upsetting. And my dream is to own a Pizza Hut to live in as a home.
Is there still one at Marion?
There's still an all-you-can-eat at Marion, so, well, not with the world that we live in at the moment. But. All right, the next question. Who goes on your Mount Rushmore of actors or actresses?
Well, it's probably not going to be any of the true greats that people have, think are the most amazing in cinema. It would be the people that are in the movies I enjoy. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is definitely on there.
Yep.
Probably Robert Downey Jr. Even though...
Is it a 1980s Robert Downey Jr.? Less than zero?
No, it's a modern Robert Downey Jr. Okay. I think Tom Hanks might have to go on there. Not that I enjoy all of his movies.
Just by default,
yeah,
almost.
But anything of his that I've enjoyed, he's been amazing in.
Yeah.
And maybe Uma Thurman.
That's a bit different.
Yeah, I just Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill. She's just fantastic.
And she's made some terrible films with Ethan Hawke. They kind of team up and do their indies, and they're terrible. Would you prefer to watch a movie at home or at the cinemas? And this is obviously a question from 2019.
Yes,
quietly.
I'd still go now. Look, if it's a big budget sort of action blockbuster, especially like any of the Marvel movies, any of Arnie's older movies, those sorts of things.
Yep.
Even Star Wars when I was still into it. I hate The Last Jedi. Any of those big budget ones I would want to go see in the cinema.
Yep.
I think maybe one of the last movies I went and saw was 1917.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I'm not normally into the drama-y type ones, but it's still that sort of action set-piece sort of movie. Love seeing those at the cinema. Just about anything else I would probably prefer to watch at home.
Yep. And when you do go to the cinemas, what's the food of choice?
Well, I'm old, so it's popcorn. Probably.
Well, you're not that old, because if you're really old, it'd be boiled lollies.
Oh, well.
Licorice, all sorts.
I feel old, let's put it that way. Probably a choc top as well.
Nice.
And, by having the salted popcorn, you have that excuse to have a large Coke with it. And the choc top, you can get out the way early with the wrapper. And then the popcorn, and this is something I hate, the popcorn isn't a noisy food. It's not particularly crunchy. It's just in a nice cardboard box. There's no wrappers.
The choc top needs to be gone before you're introduced to all the characters of the film.
You have that during the ads.
Yep.
Like, get it out the way, get rid of that plastic popcorn after.
Nice. If you could have one style of movie that you watch for the rest of your life, you had to choose between comedy, horror, or drama, what would you pick?
Drama, I'm not into often. Needs to be very specific sort of movie, so it wouldn't be drama. Horror I enjoyed much more as a kid. These days I really have to be in the mood for it. Whereas if it's a decent comedy, I can enjoy it just about any time. So I'd probably say comedy.
Nice. Which film that didn't get a sequel but deserved one?
Yeah, it's too late now. The Goonies. I would have loved to see a sequel to The Goonies. Of course the Fratellis would have broken out of prison again.
Yep.
And, I see them going after them and, they've moved on to their... Well, no, they would have stayed where they were, wouldn't they? But, I don't know. Of course they would have found a new map. Something cool would have happened. There would have been skeletons.
I feel like the gold would have been stolen in a sequel. And they have to just win it back kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and who would play you in a biopic?
I probably can't think of anyone who would be good now, but probably more in their prime, someone like Michael Chiklis.
Okay,
would have been good. Yeah, I would have picked him. Stick a beard on him.
Got the same hairdo.
Yeah. That's probably the main reason I picked him, to be honest. But
I wonder what he's doing now.
From what I understand, he's looking really old and really fat. So
he'd
probably be good to play me in 5 years.
And I hate to bring it up 2 weeks or a couple of weeks in a row, but I do remember in the final season of Sons of Anarchy he popped up.
Oh,
and he was about 90 years old.
Yeah.
So that was quite...
Well, he can play old Havok towards the end.
What, in the biopic that we're talking about, starring Michael Chiklis, what is the main title song?
Look, if it's How I Feel Now, it's probably the Johnny Cash version of Hurt.
Oh, wow. What a grim, fun time we're in for.
I'm on the way out. But look, if it's meant to try and be about the good times and the younger me, then I'd probably go with my original wrestling entrance theme, which was Serial Thriller by The Prodigy.
Nice. That's still an intense opening.
Yeah.
You're both ends of the scale.
Yeah. I love that long opening it had with like that. Yeah. Great song.
Which movie freaked you out the most as a child?
There was a lot of movies that freaked me out, like The Blob. I still remember that scene where he's like trying to get in the girl's pants in the car and he like turns around, goes back and like tries to grab her boobs or whatever, and his hand just kind of goes into her eaten, sunken-in chest. But the one that freaked me out more was Night of the Creeps.
Yes, what a great film to bring up.
Do you know what scene it was that freaked me out?
It could have been any, really. The slugs or the...
Well, it's the one where the guy in the wheelchair is sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
And you've got the slugs that enter any orifice they can and get to your brain. And it obviously goes straight up his bum. And then in the next scene, he's a slug zombie walking down the hallway. As a kid, that movie freaked me out.
Between that and the front cover of the movie The Ghoulies 1 and The Ghoulies 2...
Coming out the toilet?
It's a surprise that our generation learned to use the toilet.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't, but the rest of you guys did, which is good. The next question... One of your childhood favourite properties that never got... Well, hasn't got a movie or a reboot. What would you like to...
Oh, so can it be a movie or...
It can be your favourite show as a kid. It can be a gritty reboot of one of your teachers you had at school. It can be anything from your childhood.
I loved that Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Nice.
I would love to see like a Netflix gritty reimagining of that.
And Vin Diesel nowhere near it.
No. What was the bad guy? Was it Dengar?
Yes, Dengar.
Yeah, like... a cool version of him, bunch of, older teenagers, some, really horrible things going on.
Give it to Amazon Prime. Get a series out of it.
Nice gritty,
gritty
live action reboot of that would be fantastic.
Very nice. If you could drive one vehicle from any movie, including, and we have to preface that That includes the TARDIS from Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. Well, it is a vehicle, I suppose.
Any vehicle from a film that you could drive, what would you choose?
Does anyone not choose the DeLorean?
Well, that's like the stock. That is your popcorn answer to the first question.
I've got I'll give you something different. How about that? So I'm not really a car guy. They run on some sort of fossil fuel or something. But I've always loved Toyota Supras.
Right.
So that orange Supra from the Fast and the Furious.
Yep, the first
I would
one.
love to drive that.
Looks like a shopping trolley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with paneling on the.
I mean, I prefer the full closed-in spoiler.
Yes.
Not that sort of racing spoiler that it's got, but it's just the one car I've always loved is a Toyota Supra, so that one.
Nice. I didn't take you for that kind of person, but...
Well, I'm not really into cars, but car...
Just let me put my wallet back in my backpack.
Yeah.
just in case. Nice. And if you could... what are we up to? If you could add your favourite fictional character to any other film to make it better or make it worse, who would it be? What would it be?
I was trying to think who is my favourite fictional character of all time. And the one constant, which, is probably more relevant now, would be Iron Man. So I wasn't a huge comic book reader, but I always read Iron Man comics. I always watched the cartoons, and then, Iron Man is easily my favourite Marvel character now. Yep. So I would just put him in all of the Marvel movies they made at some stage. Have him pop up, his suit just turn up and he's talking through it, whatever.
He's more Stan Lee than Stan Lee.
Stick him in every single Marvel movie and I'd be happy.
And it'd be great to put him in movies where his powers solved the problems in the movie like that. Yep. Like, it'd be great to have him in the likes of Flight of the Phoenix, where they're stuck in the desert with the plane and he just flies them all back. Yep. It's like the end.
Save the day.
20-minute movie. Enjoy. Very nice. And finally, if you had a VHS tape of an actor or actress... Who would it be if you were to wear out that VHS? I'm talking you'd press play and it'd look like a barcode.
Probably Salma Hayek.
Nice answer.
And it would probably be that scene from Dusk Till Dawn.
Well, amazingly, that question spawned from... We've got a podcast part of DVG, and I quite often watch stuff on VHS still. I still have my childhood copy of From Dusk Till Dawn. I put it on, and it looked like a barcode when it played. And I was like, this is a new VCR. I'm a bit worried. But it is what it is. It is. It's just acted so well.
It is.
It's something
very well choreographed.
And you, like myself, love it because you're a huge fan of Tito and Tarantula. That's the only reason that you're a big fan of it. Anyway, we are getting well through the evening, and we haven't even talked about your first film, so let's jump into it. This is DVG. It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard, as we get into the top 10 films of Havok, the professional wrestler. And the first choice, you probably guessed it from the song, we are talking about 1987, directed by Joel Schumacher, the man that ruined Batman for me. We are talking about The Lost Boys. Havok, why did you pick this film?
All of these movies are probably going to be ones that I just have really fond memories of as a kid or a young teenager. They're all ones you think back on, and you can just remember cozy on the couch with a blanket. It was before I really got into video games. I just loved watching movies. Well, you wouldn't really call this a horror. I was a bit more into that sort of stuff back then, and it had some younger guys in it. So as a younger guy, I was able to still relate to it.
Yep. But saying it's not horror, like, I would consider The Lost Boys as an entry-level horror.
Yeah.
It's almost the demographic of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Where it's like, it's the horror themes, but there's something fun about everything in the movie.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's a bit different now, isn't it? Like, the sort of entry-level stuff is probably a bit tamer than it was back then. But
because I recently showed it to my oldest son, and the bit where they're hanging on the train bridge... and Michael accidentally lets go and he freaks out.
Yep.
That really shocked my son. And I'm like, because it's a movie you've seen so many times.
Yeah.
You forget that he doesn't know that they can fly and that he can fly.
No.
So, man, this movie's iconic. I don't know if you ever bothered with the 2 sequels, but they are pretty bad.
No, I think I saw a little bit of the second one and I was like, no, let's just pretend it's just the first movie.
Yeah.
And that's it.
By far the greatest vampire film ever made, I think.
Yeah, it's actually probably the only one I really... Oh, I think I remember... I have fond memories of Fright Night.
Love
as a
that
kid.
movie.
Yeah.
That is a lot of fun.
But no, this is... Yeah, this is... even Interview with a Vampire, stuff like that.
Yep, Interview with Vampires is a lot of fun too.
It's not... when I think of a vampire movie, this is what I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Robert Pattinson?
Definitely not.
You're like,
although,
no, I only like the book.
Sadly, I can say I've seen 2 of those movies, I think, and couldn't bring myself to watch the third one.
I read the synopsis of the final one just to ruin it for my friend that was a huge Twilight fan, and she didn't believe me when what I said happened. Mm-hmm. It then happened, and she's like, I can't convey if I'm completely angry with you or completely angry with the ending of the film. She goes, because spoiler alert for everyone listening, they rewind the movie and just redo the ending. It's all it was all a dream.
That's right.
Good times. This movie stars the 2 Coreys in perhaps both of their best roles. Everyone wanted to be the Frog Brothers back in the 80s and fight vampires. Diane Wiest is she's much like everyone now considers Tom Hanks the internet's dad or, moviegoer's dad. I think Diane Wiest in the late 80s, early 90s, she was everyone's mum. This movie is really effective. You get an amazing performance from Kiefer Sutherland that a lot of people know from Stand By Me or 24, depending on where you know him from. Did you ever see him in a movie in the late 90s called Freeway with Reese Witherspoon?
It sounds familiar, but it also seems incredibly forgettable.
Yeah, it pretty much is. Other than the fact he's a serial killer. Oh. So it's pretty... Yeah.
Now, who was the guy that played Michael?
Michael was played by Jason Patric.
Because I just can't recall ever seeing him in anything ever again. And I thought he was quite good in this movie. He's
fantastic in this movie, and he's like a leading man. He reminds me for some reason, I guess it's the look, but he's very Jim Morrison in this.
Very much.
However, he went on to be the replacement of Keanu Reeves in the second Speed film. He was in Sleepers, which is a fantastic film for the entire family. Go out and watch that one as soon as you can. He played himself. I don't know if you ever got into the TV show Entourage.
Oh, yeah.
He played himself in a latest season, and he was real douchey. And because he's a well-known character actor / method actor, and he was really a douche in that. And I was like, well, obviously that's what he's really like. Obviously, the world lost Joel Schumacher this year, and as I said, he ruined Batman for me, but that's just me. Yep. I don't know if you're a fan of...
No,
what's your Batman fan... what's the range of Batman fan that you are?
So, the first one with Michael Keaton, brilliant movie.
Yep.
Batman Returns, I enjoyed. Wasn't as good as the first one. It started to become a little bit too...
When DeVito bit that guy's nose, scared me as a kid.
It just started to... I know it's a comic book movie, but the first one, I don't know, just didn't... It had its corniness, but not in a corny way. I can't really explain it. Whereas Batman Returns just started going a bit too far into like the colourful, silly, like, the penguins shooting rockets off their back and stuff. I still enjoyed it, but then after that, as far as those Batman movies go, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Michael Keaton and nothing else.
I still, to this day, I'm not sure if it's NCIS or one of those shows, Chris O'Donnell would show up on TV, and I'm like, you ruined Batman too. Yeah. You were there. You and Alicia Silverstone and Coolio. Weird that I remember that. Yeah, The Lost Boys, a fantastic start of your film list. Let's get back into things now. This is 100.5 WOWFM. It is so funny to watch The Goonies from 1985 now, Havok, your next choice this evening, and put it in the context of this man made the iconic Superman film. And for me, knowing, like, I didn't know for years that it was the same director. Finding that out actually made Superman more fun. Because The Goonies is nearly everyone's favorite childhood movie. However, I'm not the biggest fan, but I won't take away from what it is to everyone else. Have we got heat now?
You're lucky there's no fold-up chairs in here.
As we met Brett on the way into the studio, he did mention the new monitors in the studio. Not afraid to powerbomb you straight through them. Okay. So just putting it out there before you get any ideas.
Calm down.
1985, where were you? What were you doing? What were you doing that made you fall in love with the Goonies?
Well, I know I was a kid, And after 20 years of wrestling and getting hit in the head a lot, that's about all I remember from 85. I suppose this is my number one childhood movie.
Yeah, right.
I reckon it is. I can remember getting this big brown, like, long jacket from the op shop because I wanted to dress up like Data. And I can't even remember what lame gadgets I tried. I probably put a torch in my pocket and pretended it was some amazing gadget.
Perfect.
There weren't many movies where I would go to that length after watching it. It was one of those movies I could watch over and over. I think it's just that sense of adventure, doing something exciting that I would have loved to do something even remotely that exciting as a kid. It just captures everything you want as a kid. You've got all the friendship in there. You've got, the angst that, just solidifies their friendship later on. The bad guys after them, of course, which, Ma Fratelli's kind of iconic for a childhood villain.
The picking on the fat kid.
Yeah.
I remember that for
sure.
Oh,
yeah, me too.
I really, one thing I must say, the first time I saw The Goonies when I was a kid with my family, I became obsessed with the idea of treasure maps. And I'll always remember drawing up this intricate treasure map on a piece of paper and Mum letting me rub it all with coffee and drying it in the oven so that it looked like a map.
Yeah, I burnt the edges of mine.
Nice. I then rode to a few blocks over to where the X was marked because I did it real to like our area.
Yep.
So disappointed there was nothing there. Yeah. But I still remember my brain going, I wonder what it is.
Just draw an X on a map and treasure appears.
And I was like, oh, no. Right. But yeah, this movie, it is everything that the world discovered with the likes of Stranger Things. This is the blueprint for that kind of nostalgic 1980s. Yep. Like, just the way it's done. Written by Chris Columbus, who did, obviously, Home Alone and a lot of other stuff. This movie, it definitely has its place. It was made for $19 million, made $124 million upon release. Quite often gets mistaken as, like you heard in the trailer there, it's not directed by Steven Spielberg like a lot of people think it is. However, he just produced it. And you were saying that, this film never got a sequel, but it really deserved it.
I would have loved it.
And also, like, obviously, this is your second Corey Feldman film for the evening, and we're only 2 films in.
I don't think I've got any more.
Were you a fan of Gremlins?
I didn't mind Gremlins. Something about it didn't particularly capture me, but, it's just one of those, you still have fond memories of it as a kid.
Yeah. Nice. How often do you revisit The Goonies?
At least once a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's jump into a little bit of music. And don't forget, if you're out there listening, let us know you're there. Join in the conversation. Jump on our social media, whether it be our Instagram, Dave's Video Graveyard on WOWFM, or the same thing on Facebook. Send us a message and let us know how things are going. This is 100.5 WOWFM. In 1999, the entire world fell in love with a film that's all about a floating plastic bag. No, this is DVG. We're joined by Havok, taking us through his 10 favourite films of all time. And the next choice is 1999, directed by Sam Mendes. We are talking American Beauty, featuring the world's favourite scumbag, Kevin Spacey, but pushing that right aside for the sake of a film. Tell us why you picked this film.
I'm not normally into these sort of drama movies to make you think, but there's something special about this movie. I think in a way I'm kind of jealous about how his character gets to the point where he just doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
I think we'd all like to be there. The way he starts to manipulate people around him, like at work, like, oh, we're going to have to get rid of you. And he says, oh, what if I say you tried to do some things to me? Like,
he ends up with 60G.
The things that he does in this movie are the sorts of things you think about doing and wish that you could. And
there was 3 movies from 1999 that did pretty much this premise. It shows how we're all feeling at the end of the 90s. You had Office Space, this, and Fight Club all have the same part where someone's pushed to the point where they don't care anymore. And it really paints it as a fun time for the most part.
Yeah, well. No, what was his name? Lester Burnham? Is that his name? Just such a pathetic loser, which maybe there's parts of that I can relate to. Let's not pretend here. Just the way he he just moves on from that part of his life and just goes, I'm just going to do what I want to do to make me happy.
He flicks a switch. Nothing from this part of my life is going to hurt me anymore. I'm just moving forward.
Yep.
It's funny, when I went and saw Captain Marvel, Annette Bening popped up. I was like, I still hate you. I still hate you from American Beauty.
Yeah, she's very unlikable, isn't she?
It's so well cast. Like, just everyone in this movie is on their A game. Obviously, it has its creepy stuff. And also, after seeing American Beauty, I always say it about the actor Kurtwood Smith, but Chris Cooper, whenever he's in something and he's the secret bad guy, he's the dad of the guy across the road.
Yep.
I'm always like, there's no secret.
No.
I know who the bad guy is.
He's the bad guy. He's always the bad guy.
Always the bad guy.
It's the sort of movie where, at the end, you want to off yourself, but you're happy about it.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
it's such a...
You feel like you'll just be at peace.
It's such a weird...
And every actor is fantastic in it.
There's a lot of movies from the early 2000s, late 90s that, like, put you in this really uncomfortable spot. But, movies before that put you in an uncomfortable spot but then pulled you back. Yeah. Whereas it was around this time when movies would put you in that spot and go, enjoy. You are staying here
You
now.
stay there.
Yeah, so I cannot think of a bad performance in this film.
No.
Which usually, with like a high concept drama, there's something that sticks out.
Yeah, there's at least one person that you're like, they weren't cast properly.
Whereas this is across the board. Like, everyone in this is unlike. And also another thing that I think's not completely unique, but definitely stands out. One of the first examples I could think of, where it's a story where you're forced to realize as the audience, there's not always a good guy.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's a grey area because beyond his personal life and the real person, Kevin Spacey's character is not a good person.
No, he never was in that movie.
I know, but you're in the basically he's your conduit to this film. And so you're like, oh, okay, so he's the guy to root for. And you start making excuses for what a terrible person he is in the movie.
Yeah, you do.
I've got to make sure I say in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie.
You start making excuses for Lester's character and you realise that there is no one good in this movie.
No. No
one is without sin in this film. No. How often do you revisit this one?
Oh, this is one of those ones I'd watch every couple of years.
Yeah.
It's an odd movie, but it's a bit of a pick-me-up movie. Like, I don't know, something about it at the end, you kind of feel you take on a bit of his character. You feel a bit at peace. You feel that...
I'm going to have to check in on you a few times over the next few months this is the movie that makes you feel good.
No, it's good. I don't know, like, I suppose what it is in the end, I kind of feel happy for him.
Nice.
Like, he got some peace at the end and...
He lifted some weights, smoked some things.
Yeah, and then, he doesn't have to put up with anything anymore. Like, I don't know, it's a great movie all round.
Oh, man, what a movie. They don't make them like this anymore.
No.
That's probably a good thing in some ways. But yeah,
I don't think anyone wants to watch a movie like this at the moment.
This was the movie you sent through your list, and this was the one that stood out just because it was the spanner in the works. Like, you know what I mean? However, I'm really excited to get to the next film, so we'll play a little bit of music before we get there. This is 100.5 WOW FM. It is DVG as we count through the 10 favourite films of Havok, and we are up to a classic, and I'm ashamed to say one of the first times that Canon Films have come up on the show, which is an absolute travesty. Also, shout out on the social media to our good friend Jamie. He said to let us know that Love at First Bite is the best vampire movie of all time. So just putting it out there. Now, on a remote Caribbean island, Army Ranger Joe Armstrong investigates the disappearance of several Marines, which leads him to the line, a super criminal who kidnapped a local scientist and mass-produced an army of mutant ninja warriors. If that synopsis didn't grab you, then this next 10 minutes is not going to be for you. You have chosen American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, starring Michael Dudikoff. What a classic. It is about time we got a little bit of love for the lesser action franchises. Like this movie, like we were talking off air, Canon Films were famous, and I recommend Electric Boogaloo to the doco on Canon Films. It is insane the amount of things they ripped off, but they occasionally caught gold. And what I would give to see all these actors, like this tier of like, I I can't think of them. There was those twins that looked like pro wrestlers with the long black mullets. They're in a heap of movies like this.
Yep.
You got your David Bradley, your Dudikoff. I want to see all these guys in an Expendables movie up against the A-Team.
Yep.
Like, this would be... Why did you pick this one specifically?
So I went through a phase as a kid where I just loved like martial arts and ninja movies. We probably all did. So, would go down to the video store and hire all the Bruce Lee movies like Game of Death, all the Jackie Chan movies, the multitude of low-budget ninja movies that I can't even remember the name of. I watched the first American Ninja and enjoyed it. And then when I saw that the sequel was there, I was I'll give this a go. I enjoyed the first one. And I don't know what it is about this movie. I can't even put my finger on it. It is so bad, but I love it. Like, for starters, the fight scenes look like they did a final rehearsal run through and went, actually, we'll just use that.
Yeah.
Like, don't actually hit each other or anything. We'll just do a run through. Actually, that was good. We'll just use that.
One of my favourite tropes in all these old ninja movies was the entire time the stuntmen that play the ninjas are trying to hit each other's swords over anything else. There's so many... Like, I know that sword nerds would be so upset because the amount of times that they're completely exposed and they'll reach, like, in an awkward position just to make sure they tap
that
swords.
Their swords hit. Yeah.
And, what a time. And we were talking off air. Canon kind of had this... this mission statement that if a movie made money, it had to have a sequel and it had to cost less. Because you maximize profits. And this had I reckon there was 4 American Ninja, maybe
there
5.
might have even been 5. I know this one.
There was 3, which was called Blood Hunt.
Yeah, that had David Bradley.
Yes, yeah.
And then I think did Michael Dudikoff come back for the 4th one with David Bradley?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't think
there's one where I can't even remember how they apparently know each other because Michael Dudikoff's not even in the 3rd one. But he comes back and they go on a ninja mission together. But I know this one they shot in South Africa, and at the time there was all that political turmoil over there, but they could do it. But the reason they shot it there,
the end of apartheid, they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we can just be ninjas in the background."
It was all because of some you get money back on tax deal, and that's the only reason they went and shot it in South Africa.
So Dudikoff did 2. He wasn't there for 3, but he did return for American Ninja 4.
And David Bradley was in that, and they did it together, I reckon. Yeah, but something about this one, like the story's not very good.
Look at that.
I love Michael Dudikoff, though. There's something cool about him. The first movie, he was like this really quiet guy, and as a sort of insecure kid, I really got attached to his character. And so, his character grows in the second one. He's, a bit more out there and stuff, but there was nothing special about him. He just, I don't know what it was. He was just a cool guy. And he was the American ninja. Yes. Even though pretty much every single ninja in all of these movies appears to just be some white dude in a
you see
in a ninja outfit.
You see the controversy now with casting and appropriation of culture and stuff. I don't think we'll be seeing any of these.
Well, I mean, it was all right for this one because all the ninjas were like Marines and stuff that got kidnapped
or mutants.
Yeah, and then they got given special DNA and stuff because the scientist they talk about was he was trying to make a cure for cancer, and then the big drug lord, the lion, makes him turn it into something for making ninjas to help with drugs somehow.
Oh man, I'm falling down a hole right now just looking
Avenging
at IMDb.
Force. Yeah, that's the other Michael Dudikoff
Force from
movie.
86. And the other one that I remember really well was American Samurai.
Was that David Bradley?
It was David.
Yeah.
No, I believe it was. David Bradley. So that was his franchise.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he was...
I need to watch 4 again where they team up.
And it's got Mark Dacus. I can't say his name, but he was in the last John Wick. But he's also from the Double Dragon movie, which
that was an awful movie.
So did you go right down to the likes of Van Damme Cyborg? Then you get Cyborg Cop and all these
all of that stuff. I watched them all at the time, but something about American Ninja 2, of all those canon movies, that's the one that stands out to me. And it's a special movie for me for some reason. I'm not even sure why. Of all those ninja movies, it's not actually very good, but I love it.
Well, let's jump into a movie that I think everyone should love. We found out during the week that it's being remade, which is quite upsetting, but let's go back to the classic. This is DVG. We are traveling back to 1987 and talking about Havok's next choice, which is the first time I ever in my entire life heard the F word. We are talking about planes, trains, and automobiles. Why did you pick this amazing film?
Look, these days I don't really get into comedies or sort of screwball comedies. Something about them these days just doesn't have the magic that those sorts of movies had back then. This one, mind you, it's probably embedded into my brain because, like, you know, you'd stay at your mate's place on the weekend, you'd put movies on, and every single weekend this would be on while you're, like, trying to go to sleep at midnight or whatever. So I don't know how many times I heard this in my sleep, but it's you know, it's got your screwball comedy. The main guy actually isn't particularly likable, Steve Martin's character. He's not. And then John Candy's character, he's not particularly likable either.
They're different, unlikable characters.
They are. And I probably relate more to Steve Martin's character. He's more who I would be. But the story of just how circumstance puts them together, over the course of the movie, you know, you learn a little bit more about both of them. They sort of purposely keep John Candy's character, you know, don't tell you a lot about him. But, you know, you start to get the hint that there's something going on there with him. Both characters become more likable over the course of the movie. And then by the end of it, both of them have sort of made each other better people.
Yeah, it is the perfect, like, odd couple story.
It is.
It really is. I often wonder, like, we grew up at a time where the likes of John Candy, obviously Steve Martin, you know, Bill Murray, all those guys, you just watch the movie off the back of, like, just knowing that it was going to be comedy gold. Like, anything that has John Candy in it to this day, I will still force myself to watch. Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, Arms and even Canadian Bacon, like his later movies. There's just something that's so endearing about revisiting his films. And I think to some people the modern day equivalent would be like Will Ferrell maybe, or even Seth Rogen or something. Because it's like a group of friends making movies that you'll always give them a bit of a chance.
Yeah, of course.
But I just don't think anyone's captured the gold. And like you said, the reveal of the character of John Candy in this film, it's brutal. Like, it is heartbreaking. It is. But at the same time, like, that's particularly that speech that's always stuck with me since a kid was the "I like me" speech. Is so brutal. And like I said, this is the first time I heard, the first through like 15th time I heard the F word, because there's a scene where Steve Martin speaks to the front desk of a hire car place, and it is something magical that needs to be couldn't play it on the show, funnily enough.
No, but the story he tells.
It is such a good, I think this is one of Steve Martin's best roles.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a huge fan of both these guys. I wouldn't say it's John Candy's best role, because I still think Uncle Buck just takes the cake for that one. Obviously a John Hughes movie, so, you know, it's coming from, I guess, comedy royalty, really, because you look at, you know, like The Breakfast Club, you know, all those films that he was a part of. And this is one of his more, I think, nuanced in how, like I said, it makes you feel. Yeah. It really makes you feel. Sucker punches you right near the end,
and just a good feel-good ending.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
it just finishes it off so nicely.
Still to this day, every time I go into an op shop and see like a big trunk, I just think of
Imagine him pulling it around.
Yeah. Oh, what a great film.
It is.
One definitely to be revisited. This is DVG. Don't forget you can join in the conversation here by simply jumping on our social media, Dave's Video Graveyard. And while you're on social media, make sure you check out the work of Havok. Where's the best place for people to check that out?
Well, you can go to my Instagram, Havok_pro_wrestler.
Oh, it's not just a clever name.
No, of course not. Or just have a search for me on Facebook. Make sure you use a K. It is no Havok with a C.
That's it. That's not even how you spell things.
No.
This is DVG. The Wolfman's got nards. This is DVG. We are talking about 1987, I believe, The Monster Squad. What a film. Revisiting it, it is still an absolute classic. It essentially features the original Universal monsters facing off pretty much against the Goonies.
Just about.
It's one of those films where it's like it's taken from so many other films, but it's become its own thing.
Yeah.
And revisiting it, I made my kids watch it. They were absolutely obsessed with it. It does have that 1980s thing of homophobic slurs in it.
Yeah.
But once you get past that, that's... Now you see bullies portrayed in movies as racist, so they'll say something hatefully and racist. That's pretty much the equivalent of what they did in the 80s with the bullies would always say something homophobic.
Yep.
But beyond that, and written by one of my favourite writers of all time / directors, which I can say now because nothing's come out, but I'm sure give it time. Shane Black of Predator fame helmed this film. Talking about the Monster Squad, why did you pick it?
Another one of those childhood feel-good movies, I guess, with that sense of adventure, similar to Goonies. You've got that bunch of kids who... Well, I suppose the thing that's a little bit different about this one is if you think about it, they kind of systematically murder all of the monsters as the movie goes on.
One's with a shotgun.
Yeah, the fat kid. Isn't that what the bully calls him? Hey, fat kid.
Yeah.
Kills the creature from the Black Lagoon with a shotgun. He gets off the cop because somehow the cops couldn't kill the creature. It just came along and like squashed their heads, but then he picks up the shotgun and kills it. And then you got the mummy that I think they like tie the bandages from the mummy to an arrow or something
and shoot it into a vortex.
And then in the end, like he's just got his skull spinning on the ground. The
little sister becomes best friends with Frankenstein's monster.
Frankenstein's actually the monster is actually like a good guy. I think they just kill the Wolfman with a silver bullet.
And he turns back into a human. That's when the cop's like, oh no.
Yeah, and I think he thanks them.
Yeah.
Thanks them for But what is it? I think the story is, 100 years ago, Van Helsing tried to use some amulet to send Dracula and all the monsters to...
the German translation wasn't right, so it only worked for 100
and like
years.
Sucked Van Helsing in or something, and then all the bad guys out, and so Dracula goes, well, I'll get the gang back together. And so he gets, Wolfman, Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, creature from the Black Lagoon. They go looking for the amulet. I can't remember why, because... It'll make him more powerful or something. So anyway, Van Helsing's stuck in the thing, and then, the kids find out about it, and there's the scary German guy who lives next door that they sort of, he freaks them out to begin with, and they make friends with, and then, he like helps them translate the amulet and everything. It's just a great story, kids on an adventure with perils along the way, which in this one is a bunch of monsters which they kill all along the way, but in a very entertaining manner.
Just looking at the director, Fred Decker, some of his work include Night of the Creeps.
Oh, there you go.
So that ties back in. All of your flavour just overruns. He also did the fantastic movie that doesn't get as much love as it should, House.
House was good.
Which I always loved all three of the House movies. Unfortunately, he did co-wrote RoboCop 3, which it's the samurai jetpack one.
Even RoboCop 2 wasn't fantastic.
RoboCop 2 didn't know what it was.
No.
So that was my...
Well, it was a different director, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he also contributed to the story of Ricochet, which is a movie I'm trying to sell to everyone. 1991, Denzel Washington versus John Lithgow as a serial killer.
Oh, nice. It's
an amazing movie, but... It's from the time of Denzel's career that he's kind of ashamed of now. So I feel like he's almost, much like Matthew McConaughey with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, he's kind of just like, shh, don't bring that up.
Don't blame him there.
Yeah. Man, this movie is... he also, just looking at Fred Decker as well, he was hired to write the original draft of Godzilla King of the Monsters. So,
really?
Yeah, so he's still working
kicking?
He's still... very much tied to the monsters of films. And he's done a lot of work with Frank Miller, so it's pretty cool.
Still remember the Horace, the one that the bully calls Fat Kid.
Yes.
He like steps on his chocolate bar and goes to make him eat it, but then for some this is probably the only
Isn't
bit that
one of the bullies the big brother from the Wonder Years?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. This didn't really make sense, but like the cool guy of the school that no one would mess with, for some reason he's friends with the like loser kids.
Yeah,
I don't really understand.
They never explain that.
No, I mean it still works for the thing. But, in the end, Horace kills the creature with the shotgun. And they're like, wow, good work, fat kid. My name is Horace. And pumps the shotgun. Great scene.
I just never got my monster, so I'm still the fat kid. But one day, I will kill a monster with a shotgun. One day they'll play back that clip I just said in a courtroom. It's not going to be good, but anyway. I'm a bit obsessed with Fred Dekker at the moment because he also wrote a movie from the 90s I absolutely loved called If Looks Could Kill.
I haven't seen that one.
It's a student played by Richard Grieco, the other guy from 21 Jump Street. He has the same name as like a James Bond super spy, and he goes to a class trip to France, and the real spy gets killed. And so the spy people don't realize that he's not the spy. So they give him a Lamborghini that shoots rockets and stuff. It is as 91 as a movie could ever be, but I highly recommend anyone listening checking it out because it is a lot of fun. And it's got that, I believe it's got the little lady from Kindergarten Cop, the principal.
Yeah.
She's a killer that kills people with a whip. It is, brilliant. Man, what a movie. However, it's all about you we're talking this evening. So how often do you revisit Monster Squad?
Monster Squad's every couple of years.
Stranger Things owes a lot to this movie as well.
Yeah. It's just like Goonies, the sense of adventure, it's a little bit coming of age as well, I guess, for those kids. The sort of nerdy kids no one likes, and then they show their worth by the end of the movie. It has a good feel-good ending.
That's an overrunning theme of a lot of your movies as well.
Yeah, great movie.
Do you sell curtain rings?
No.
Okay, I just had to check. Jamie has contacted us on social media. He's let us know that Monster Squad was only released on DVD last year in Australia. He also said to check out Ricochet because it's also got Ice-T in it. And Linda Hunt is the principal that we're talking about from Kindergarten Cop. So Jamie's on it. He's always got our back. Speaking of back, let's get back into the music before we round out this list. Still got half an hour to go. Don't forget, joining the conversation. Jump on our Instagram. And, of course, check out Havok's work on Instagram, as well as both Riot City and Wrestle Rampage's work. This is DVG. It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard, as we travel back once again to the same year the Goonies came out, 1985. We are talking about Havok's Next Choice, and I'll give you a little bit of a description. It's an American teen comedy science fiction film directed by Jonathan R. Butel, and although not performing well, the movie follows on the heels of other science fiction films such as Back to the Future, Real Genius, and Weird Science. And I must admit I've never seen this film, but just from watching the trailer and discovering it's up in its entirety on YouTube, we are talking about 1985's My Science Project. Why don't you tell us about this film?
All right, so it's been a little while since I've seen this one, but it's one of those, when I think back to the movies I loved as a kid, this always pops in there. So you've got a guy who, I think he's got to pass his science project at school, hence the name, My Science Project. He's really more into cars. He wants to be a mechanic, something along those lines. And so rather than actually do a proper science project, I think he takes this girl on a date, but they go to like an old Air Force yard. He just finds this. What are those balls called where you stick your hands on there and the little purple lightning comes out to your hands?
Like a plasma
ball or whatever.
Plasma ball.
So all it is a plasma
Helix.
ball.
Oh, I can't think what it's called.
Yeah. But it kind of looks like the prop is like an old boom box that you'd carry on your shoulder with a plasma ball shoved in it, and it sort of turns out that it's it's like a warp drive for an alien spaceship from Roswell. That's right. I remember early in the movie you hear like the radio chatter of something crashing at Roswell, to try and hint where it's come from. So he's going to take that in as his science project, and it like absorbs some energy, and then kind of like a Ming vase materializes, and they're like, oh, what's going on here? And they start to learn that it'll suck in power, and then it can obviously, time warp, create portals, merge realities, whatever.
I don't know how I haven't seen this because
it's a great movie.
It honestly looks like it belongs on a list with the likes of like The Last Starfighter, Flight of the Navigator, all these.
I mean, it's not quite the same sort of scope as those. It is a smaller story, but some of the visuals and stuff in it are really cool.
Now, the synopsis on IMDb says, a high school student and his friend find a strange orb-like piece of equipment to use as a science project, but must stop it when it begins to threaten mankind. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, so...
Sounds like the writers of Iron Giant might have a bit of money somewhere.
Well, the whole thing about it is it absorbs power, and then the more power it gets, the more it can expand its weird time dimension capabilities. So they show it to the science teacher, Dennis Hopper, who's like... he's like an old stoner who's, now...
So he's Dennis Hopper?
Yeah, who's now a science teacher, and he's like, wow, man. He hooks it up to, like, more power and all... all hell breaks loose from there. They tell him not to. He does it anyway. Then, he gets like warped off somewhere, and even bigger dimensional rifts start happening. I think like a T-Rex and appears like the Vietnam jungle.
So
sort of
much
like
fun.
Zooms in. Then like they get to one part where it's like obviously the far off future has crossed over, and there's like apocalyptic mutants, and it's like it starts traveling through the power lines, like to try and get to the power station, because it'll probably do that to the whole Earth, and they have to like stop it, and it's really good movie actually. This is the next film I will be watching in my life. That looks pretty. Well, hopefully
fantastic.
it lives up to the hype. I really enjoyed it.
Well, it better, because the next film you've chosen is somewhat of an indie, unknown film. I don't think we've ever talked about it here on DVG, but it is a film called Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Ah.
What's that?
I don't know if many people have heard of that one, actually. Just this little... I think it was a bit of a... one of those movies they use just to try out some new technical effects.
It was the antithesis... That's not a word. It was the blueprint for The Secret World of Alex Mack, the TV show. That's what it was all leading up to when James Cameron made this. This is the greatest film of mankind. It will one day bring world peace. Uncle James is making his stupid blue space monkey movie. Not interested. No. Don't want another Avatar. Don't let alone another 3. But there was a point where he made the greatest Aliens film, and then he made the greatest killer robot film in Terminator 2. He introduced the T-1000, played amazingly by Robert Patrick.
Very well done.
Man, this film is perfection.
It is. There's nothing wrong with it.
Except right at the end when they get to the steel mill, the T-800 jumps off the truck and rolls, and that special effect's pretty janky, as well as John Connor's best mate's red mullet. But beyond that, the film is flawless start to finish. It is.
And I do actually prefer the extended edition.
Now, you said that. Now, just to clarify, is the extended edition the one where Michael Biehn comes to...
yes.
In the dream in Pescadero?
It kind of helps show how unhinged and off the rails she is. And it's cool to see Michael Biehn. Come on.
I won't say no. Can you... he still got paid full, even though he never made the theatrical release.
Good.
He probably made... Apparently, he made more off Terminator 2 than he did off Terminator 1.
There's also a few extra scenes in there that add some really good context to the movie, and things make more sense. So there's the scene they added in where they like reset his chip.
Yes.
So he's been set to like read only, and they reset it so now he can learn.
Which that really goes to show the hard decisions that need to make for this film, because they actually got Linda Hamilton's twin sister to play her reflection in the mirror.
Oh, wow.
And they did it all practically. And it looks amazing because they did it actually in camera.
Yep.
It much to the upset of Linda Hamilton's sister, because she had to work out for 8 months for like one scene. And it's amazing, but it never made the cut.
No,
but it is in the extended.
But then like how he starts to try and smile and that sort of thing. That just all makes so much more sense and ties in better when you see that. The only part of the extended edition I didn't like. I like another bit context when they go into the steel mill and they start to show how the T-1000's having problems with the heat.
Yes,
like it just helps tie into how the molten metal is going to. So like his hand kind of gets stuck, and then he's kind of like when he's like, I think he grabs onto like some hazard railing with the black and yellow stripes on it, and it starts to like that pattern goes up his arm.
Yes,
and you can see like the heat is starting, and then like his foot gets stuck.
Yeah.
So that's just good leading into, the heat, just helps build premise for that's not going to work. The only part I didn't like was when you've got he's turned into Sarah Connor and she's there as well, and John Connor's like, huh? Which one is it? In the original, he sort of picks, like, because the T-1000 as Sarah Connor is kind of like asking
being
for
nice
help and stuff.
And being nice.
You're like, oh, help me, John, whatever. She would never do that.
No.
And that's how he knows which one is her. But in the extended edition, he looks down and you see that the T-1000's foot is starting to melt into the... And that's the only bit that I think actually takes away.
That's too much of a show.
It
because, it, for me, was much... It was more like... Because she gets angry and tells him to go.
Yeah.
To not help.
Yeah.
And that's what gives it away.
Yeah,
and that's the character.
Yep, so that of all the bits they added, that's the only bit I thought, oh, you shouldn't have actually put that back in because it worked better before.
Now, one of the things that always upset James Cameron was the iconic scene where the truck jumps off of the bridge and lands in the water drain.
Yep.
The windscreen falls out in the impact. But then the next scene, the T-1000 punches it out.
Yeah.
So he digitally put the windscreen back in that scene in the re-release from 2018. And I thought that was so funny because there is actually another scene that's since become a bit of a meme and like lots of animated GIFs. And it is when the T1, right after the T-800's been told he can't kill anyone and he shoots the guy's kneecaps out.
Yep.
They go in. He grabs one of the orderlies. There's like a fat... He pushes the lady with the sunglasses by the
just
face.
gives her the face push.
And he throws the other orderly into the screen window.
The glass that would have been poking up?
No. What they've discovered is he throws an African-American gentleman, at which point it cuts to a wider shot of a white stuntman hitting the wall and falling down, and it being a completely different person in that scene. And I'm like, once I saw that...
You can't
unsee it. And also it was pointed out to me... actually, I was thinking of this movie because watching the Snyder Cut, and it shows Miles Dyson explode in the Snyder Cut. They missed an opportunity of not having the... that would have been... I would have paid to see the movie again just for that to be added in. The fact that there is an arm left behind, which is the catalyst of the entire film. The fact his arm is left in the hydraulic press in the end of Terminator 2, and the start of Terminator 2 is essentially they've remanufactured from finding the original arm in the factory. I'm like, they haven't fixed anything.
No.
I always hated the ending with old John at the playground, though.
Oh, was that the other ending that they
There's
had?
the alternative ending, which they tried to put on with, like, the TV version of it.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous because, like, the actor they got to play... In saying that, the actor they got to play old John was better than both Christian Bale and...
he was.
Old mate Clark, Jason Clarke.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
awful.
while we're in the area of Terminator 2, we should really touch on your next choice, which is from 1987. We covered it on this week's episode of DVG's podcast. We're talking about RoboCop from Paul Verhoeven. What an amazing film.
It is. What I love about those sort of dystopian movies of the day is they're just the 80s, but heap shitter. That's all it is. Like, the technology's, well, you know, apart from RoboCop, like, the general technology's no better. The world's no better.
We spoke about that. It's just the 80s.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, there's robots.
Yeah, that's all it is.
But I've got to say, one of the greatest villains of all time, and speaking of villains, coming up in a few weeks' time on DVG, we'll be joined by some special guests talking about the greatest villains of all time. Kurtwood Smith in this movie is terrifying to the point where even now when I watch the 70s show, I'm like, stop messing with him. Stop messing with him.
I don't know how many times just you look for any opportunity to go, bitches leave. Like, you know, you'll be walk into the office and you'll just say it. Like, get out of here.
Paul, my co-host, nailed it by saying the fact he doesn't kill those two women when he's shooting out the guy's kneecaps gives you this sense of you don't know where his line is.
No.
Like who he's going to kill. And it really is a great character thing.
Yeah, he's fantastic in that.
And then there were just terrible sequels.
And who's the guy that plays Dick Jones?
Dick Jones is... Oh, what's his name?
Like, he was such a villain for that time that when
Ronnie Cox.
Yeah, when he plays, like, the good police chief or whatever in Beverly Hills Cop, it's like, but I can't like you.
No,
You're always a
exactly.
villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
And that's what I was saying earlier about Chris Cooper. When he's being the nice guy and something, like, no, sorry.
No,
you don't get to do that.
No, you're going to turn.
Yeah.
But no, I actually watched RoboCop again recently, and just like the corniness that they put in there, they put it in there on purpose, and so it works. Like, you know, how many times do you hear that? I'd buy that for $1, and like all he does is say the line.
But that makes no sense.
And all the bad guys are just like like cracking up laughing straight away.
Now you have covered James Cameron's greatest ever film, but let's talk about James Cameron's other greatest ever film. You also chose Aliens.
Yeah, Aliens is brilliant. The first Alien was an amazing movie for the time. You know,
But it
even
didn't
now,
have Space Marines in it.
no.
Sorry.
I mean, it still stands up now. It's a great movie, but you know, just having that bigger cast, the bigger stakes.
It is the
Heaps of aliens all over the place.
I was going to say, it is the Aliens franchise version of Terminator 2.
Yeah, it is.
And you do realise that Vasquez from Aliens is John Connor's stepmom from Terminator 2.
Oh, it is,
You know,
isn't
the
it?
stabs
Yeah,
dude in the
yeah.
mouth? I feel sorry. He comes up in a lot of movies as well, the actor that plays the stepdad,
Yep.
Todd.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, oh, you're going to get stabbed in the mouth one day.
And again, like, this is just one of those movies, like Terminator 2, there's not really anything to pick on.
No.
It's just great from start to finish. It has great pacing. Is it the extended edition where they added in, you know, they brought back the bit where you've got like the guns in the hallway?
Yep.
And again,
Yep.
it's just, it brings a lot to the movie, like just how like the aliens are relentless and there's so many of them, and you know, like, oh, how are we going to get through there? Just like with the scenes from Terminator 2, you're like, oh, how could you have cut that out? It just adds so much to the film.
It's the most important parts.
And it's got some great horror elements to it.
Well, because I've always said the original is a slow burn horror film,
Yeah.
and the second is an over the top science fiction action
Yeah.
film.
Yep.
But they both complement each other
They
perfectly.
do.
And then David Fisher swooped in and said, "Hold my beer! I'm going to ruin everything." Including killing off Michael Biehn off screen, which is so upsetting. And I also found out on YouTube, but it's also part of one of the special anniversary DVDs. There is like a 6-hour doco on the making of Aliens.
Oh, really?
And it shows, because they all did like special forces training.
Yeah.
However, James Remar, that plays he's Ajax in the Warriors, but he's also Raiden in the second Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
He was originally meant to play Michael Bihn's character.
Oh, really?
But
I like him. He's a good actor.
a certain love of cocaine made him be fired.
Oh,
And Michael Biehn was last minute replacement, like 2 weeks before shooting. And I'm like,
good replacement.
pretty lucky.
Yeah.
and it's sad because Michael Biehn, I think, like I love Michael Biehn in The Rock, and he's also amazing in Tombstone.
Yep.
And I'm always upset that like he never got bigger than,
because he could have easily.
he could have moved into like the mature, not quite the Bruce Willis,
No.
but the mature action star
Yeah,
thing. But he
definitely.
just never made it. Sadly.
No, you know, he'll be one of those guys who, for us old guys that love all those movies, who always have a special place
Yeah,
in our
I'll
heart, you
always
know?
pay for his autograph.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of guy. Now, the final film that you have chosen this evening, also from 1987, it is one of the greatest action / science fiction films of all time. From the director of Die Hard, we are talking Predator. Why did you pick this film?
Why? How could you not pick Predator? Really?
It does come up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I loved any of his stuff back then, and I still do now. Even stuff like Last Action Hero, you know.
Yep. That is a film that I hated the first time I
Yep.
saw. Have revisited it in my
Yep.
later years and realised that we just weren't ready. Much like Cable Guy, we just weren't ready for how
weren't
good
ready
it is.
for it. Yeah, I mean, Predator's just such a good action movie. You got the great one-liners, you know, doesn't he like throw a knife at a guy, stick around, like, you know, sticks him to the wall. You know, who doesn't want to walk up to their mate and wish their mate was called Dylan?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
go, Dylan, grab him, and it's just all the one-liners, all the Predator itself.
Jesse the
looked-
Body Ventura letting the world know he's a sexual Tyrannosaurus.
Like, what a great line.
Yeah.
And then Shane Black's the guy with the glasses
Yeah.
who makes all the dirty jokes.
Funny that for the guy that wrote the film.
Yeah. And yeah, the Predator just how real does it look for that movie? When was that movie?
That was 87.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could really do a better practical suit than what that Predator was.
And funnily enough, originally Van Damme was supposed to play the Predator in an orange, like, prawn outfit.
Yeah. Something ridiculous. Yeah,
but you wouldn't see his face and he was out.
But yeah, like, even now, if you just stuck that suit in a movie now, it would still look amazing.
Yep.
The effects were still really good, like the invisibility effects and everything.
And the entire world forgets that opening scene that shows the spaceship landing.
You see it just in the background or something, don't you?
No, it flies through space towards Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such an... See, you forgot it.
Yeah, because
but it ruins
you don't need it.
The reveal.
No.
Well, that is your films, and that is pretty much all the time we have this evening for DVG. Where can people check out your amazing work? Obviously, you got a lot of upcoming shows that are already sold out.
Yeah, Riot City Wrestling's this weekend and sold out in less than an hour, which is fantastic. So, you can check me out on Instagram. Just look for Havok Pro Wrestler. There's a couple of underscores in there, but I'm sure you'll find me. And, I'm on Facebook as well. And all of the shows that I'm on, the groups that I wrestle for, I post their stuff on there too, so you can catch up on all of them there.
Awesome. And, of course, if you missed any of this evening's show, it will be up on Dave's Video Graveyard YouTube. So make sure you give that a subscribe. Check out all our social media and whatnot. And, of course, stick around because coming up, the Emerald Tower will be taking over your airwaves. It's always a good time when Krez is in the seat here on WOWFM. Havok, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thanks a lot for having me.
Not making me powerbomb you through the brand new monitors.
No, I'd hate that.
It's all good. This is 100.5 WOWFM.